Thanks for having me here. I'm going to talk about food today, so everything related to health and food. So just a quick plug. If you haven't downloaded Fooducate, raise your hand and do it now while I'm talking. It's a free app for iPhone and Android. As you all know, America is fat and sick. The numbers are straggling. 200 million Americans are either overweight or obese. It's costing us $150 billion a year to treat chronic disease like diabetes. In fact, there's a new word, diabetes, obesity and diabetes together. Diabesity, jet lag. We all know that bad food leads to bad health. The food industry is about $1 trillion worth of sales every year. 400 billion, 40%, is either fast food or junk food. You got to ask yourself, why are we eating all this bad food? And the answer is that our default choices are always, or not always, but in many cases, are the unhealthy choices. Any drive down any highway in any place in the US, you'll usually encounter a sign like this. Has anyone, raise your hand if you've encountered a sign for a farmer's market? Anyone? One? Awesome. Two? Great. But that's not the default. And this leads me to a question. Should the government have any involvement in trying to change what the default choices are? Should our government try to steer us in a healthy direction? I mean, the government does intervene. We have car seatbelt laws. We have vaccinations. We have promotion of breastfeeding for babies. And we do have some regulations around food. But the problem is that sometimes you just don't understand the logic. 2 years ago, Congress voted for pizza to be counted as a vegetable. Now, I couldn't fathom that when I read it, but here's the story. About 30 million kids every single year get free or reduced lunch at school. The lunch needs to adhere to certain nutrition standards. And it turns out they were serving too much pizza, which didn't adhere to the standards. So will they serve less pizza? No. Some genius figured out that there's enough tomato paste, scrape the tomato paste, there's enough tomato paste in there to count as a serving of vegetables. And therefore, Congress voted that pizza is a vegetable. Now, between you and me, it's a fruit, but that's a whole different story. Another good intention gone wrong is the Farm Bill. This is a bill that's been around since the 1930s, since the Depression. And at that time, it was important to help farmers get some sort of a minimum payment for their efforts, for their crops. But it's turned into a huge subsidy program for two main crops, corn and soy. Now, I enjoy a good corn on the cob every once in a while, but most of the corn goes to things that are not that healthy, like high fructose corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup is a sweetener that's about half the price of sugar. And that's what leads us to Coca-Cola at a 90% profit margin, where on the other hand, the lowly zucchini, which doesn't get any subsidies, has a much lower profit margin. So if you're involved in the food industry, where do you want to be? If you're a thinking business, you want to be there. And that leads us to this huge problem or conflict of interest that the USDA has. It's the Department of Agriculture. It was founded when Abe Lincoln was still president. And the idea there was that we wanted to promote American agriculture, and that makes a lot of sense. But the same department is also in charge of our dietary guidelines. So on the one hand, you want to promote more calories, and on the other hand, you want to promote less calories. That's crazy. You can't do that in the same organization. So every 5 years, the USDA comes out with dietary guidelines for America. You may remember from 20, 30 years ago, there was the food pyramid. Then they changed it to My Pyramid. And does anyone know what it's called today? My Plate, exactly. Now, I kind of like My Plate, fruits, vegetables, grains, protein. But I was expecting the glass to be full of water. Why is there dairy in there? I think we can all answer that question. Let's go on to another government organization, the Food and Drug Administration. So you walk into any supermarket in the US today, and you'll find about 40,000 items. Not one of them is bad for you. They are all healthy. They are all good for you. Either zero cholesterol, reduced calorie, low carb. There's always something good about them. Now, how did we get to the point where there's all this marketing, health claims, all this health washing on the products that we're eating? The answer is the nutrition label. About 20 years ago, the Nutrition Labeling and Education Act was passed, and it standardized the nutrition information that will be presented to consumers on packaged foods. Now, the food industry did not like that at all. They did not like it, and so there was some give and take, and the result was a whole bunch of loopholes and the ability for, if the FDA owns the back of the package, we'll own the front through our health claims. So the loopholes include all these crazy health claims. It includes labeling trans fat as 0, even though you may have trans fat in a product. It includes obfuscation of information. For example, you never know exactly how much sugar you're getting from added sugar or naturally present in the product, and the list goes on and on and on. Here's another example of how the industry is helping Washington, or Washington is standing aside while industry makes the decisions for it. In Europe, they decided that the nutrition labels were too complicated, and they were going to do a simplified version, like a digest on the front of the package, called front of package nutrition labeling. And they did it color-coded, like a traffic light. So you see a few key nutrients, and you see them either red, green, or yellow. And it makes sense. The more red, the more you need to stay away. Now, in the US, the food industry said, no, 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 we won't have any of that. We'll just do it one color, and we'll add a lot of numbers, so that will totally confuse you. Now, the FDA should have stepped in and said, hey, this is what it's going to be. But the FDA is so far silent on the subject. Last but not least, when it comes to labeling, I'm sure everyone's aware of the GMO controversy. I'm not here to say if GMOs are safe or not. I think the science is still out. But I would like to know if a product has GMOs in it so I can decide if I want to buy it or not. The government still hasn't decided on this, at least not on the federal level. And again, I would expect them, like European counterparts, to say, hey, this is something consumers need to know. Why not have it? The problem, as you all understand, is that money talks, and in Washington, D.C., there are a lot of lobbies that have a very strong influence on our politicians. Just an example, McDonald's has spent millions of dollars in the last few years lobbying, and all major food and agricultural companies do that. And so our politicians are basically spending half their time raising money for their next campaign instead of worrying about our health. So I didn't want to get everyone down here right after lunch, and I'll give you the hope. The hope is that technology can help us. And how is it helping us? I see the internet as a supercharged grassroots movement, and it's been doing some wonderful things, and I'll give you a few examples. Has anyone heard of pink slime? Awesome. So pink slime is this type of ground beef from really terrible scraps that needs to be blasted with ammonia in order to kill all the bacteria. Since it's so, it's not a great product, it's usually served to kids in school lunch because school lunch programs get these extras. So this mom from Houston, Texas, Bettina Siegel, started a petition, and she got over 1 million signatures to get pink slime out of schools. The petition got picked up by all the major news channels, and supermarkets started to refuse to buy the product from Beef Products International, schools as well, and the company went bankrupt within a few months. Another example is a 16-year-old girl from Mississippi, Sarah Kavanaugh. She wrote Gatorade, and she also started a petition to get brominated vegetable oil out of Gatorade. I don't have time to tell you, but look it up. It's not a fun ingredient to have in your drink. So this is what the internet is doing for us as a group. But also, I think technology on a personal level is helping us manage our health, despite Washington's attempts. On the fitness side, we've never been able to track our exercise, our distance run, our heart rate, et cetera, as good as we can do now. And this is due to the Fitbits of the world. And Withing, I think, is here, also pretty cool technology I saw today. On the nutrition side, again, lots of great apps and services for tracking and journaling. It's so much easier than writing every single thing we eat. We can just take a picture or scan it with a barcode. I think together these social technologies and these personal technologies are promoting transparency. We're more transparent and true with ourselves, and we're also more transparent with a lot of data that's around and now is being organized through internet, through social media, through other technologies. And all these things together, I think, are giving us a fighting chance against what I don't think is happening in Washington from an evil perspective. I don't think government is evil, but I think there needs to be a decoupling between politicians and the influence of industry. Until that happens, we have to keep up the good fight using technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you.